Introduce to you Don Elliott, candidate for House of Delegates, District 5.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I have a handout here, Michelle. Can you pick? No. This is what I'm going to talk about here.
Oh, another one. Okay.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, we the people, we have a budget in the state of Maryland, $32 billion. It's gone up $10 billion since Governor O'Malley has been in office. But what I want to talk to you about here this evening is to address an issue that maybe you're not familiar with. I know that you've had a number of candidates come through here, District 5 candidates for the House of Delegates, but I think this is an issue that, and I don't want to repeat some of the things that they've already said. In fact, I can say this much, that as a member of the Carroll County delegation, that is a House delegation, you can expect that Delegate Elliott and Justin Reedy and Susan Krebs, we all voted pretty much. I can't imagine that our votes deviated from each other on any of the major issues. So for me to just go and speak to you about my positions on this and my positions on that, I think that's immaterial because you've already heard it from another candidate. So what I want to talk about is this, and that is how the state of Maryland comes to a balanced budget. And a balanced budget is what is required by the Constitution of the state of Maryland. What Governor O'Malley has done in the most grievous way over the 10 years or the 8 years he's been in office, and some other governors have been responsible for this in lesser ways, but that is to take money from different categories of revenue and use it to balance the budget. Let me explain. Let me speak to you about what's called the hospital assessment, and that's what you're going to see in this handout I gave you. And to the extent that my highlighter it ran out, but I'll point out the points I want you to see on this sheet of paper. The second line down, well, first off, we're talking about the left side of the paper. The second line down, you'll see deficit assessment, $412 million. And you'll see that the hospitals took in, believe it or not, $12 billion, 800 and some thousand million dollars. And of that, the governor has seen that, gosh, I ought to be able to take $412 million and balance the budget. And he did that in the 2014 budget. Now, if you look on the right-hand side, you see in the budget that's coming up, the 2015 budget, he cut that back a little bit, but he's taking $389 million. Can you imagine? I mean, we're taking that money that's from hospital money. But let me go on. The very next item that you see here, MHIP, Maryland Health Insurance Program. Now you see he's taken in the 2014 budget $106 million. Do you know what this comes out of? It comes out of the revenue of the hospitals and to balance our budget. But you must understand that we in the state of Maryland have an interesting situation. We have a rate-setting agency for the hospitals. So what happens is our Maryland rate-setting agency simply increases the amount of rate for a room in the hospital to accommodate the $412 million the governor's taken. And then what? It reflects itself in the premiums that we all have to pay. Now, what is MHIP? MHIP is another source of money for the governor, $106 million, as I note here. MHIP is the high-risk pool where people can't get their insurance any other place. They were able to get it here at a pretty high price. But it's also the pool of money that Governor O'Malley used to pay for those people that were caught in the system in January the 1st in the Obamacare system. Couldn't get through the system, and he paid out of this, I think it was something like $6 million came out of this fund. And by the way, the current balance of that fund is about $220 million. But they were taking $106 million, and next year they cut that way back, you'll see, to $72 million. But the point I'm trying to make it, and look, and all these other groups that you see on this list are other health-related groups that are taken out of the revenue of hospitals. To me, it's an outrage. Now, I'm not finished with this. I'm finished with the hospital piece of it. But let me talk about another one. Let me talk about the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Fund. Let me talk about the transportation tax fund, the trust fund, transportation trust fund. Let me talk about the transfer fund. He's taken hundreds of millions of dollars out of those funds and then done something rather strange. He's replaced some of that money with bond money. With bond money that we have to pay interest on and so forth to restore some of those hundreds of millions of dollars. And something you may not know, and perhaps if you knew, you forgot, but when we pay our property taxes in July, or we have to July to August or October, sometime in there, September. But anyway, when we pay that tax, a piece of that tax, even though it's collected here in Carroll County, a piece of the tax is state property tax. And the purpose of the state property tax is to pay for the state's indebtedness. That's the purpose of it. Well, let me tell you, my friends, we have had so much bonding has been done to replace monies in here and there in the Transportation Trust Fund that we are out of property tax monies. Consequently, $200 million was taken out of the general fund this year. And it's to go up to $500 million in a couple years. That's $500 million in a couple years that will be taken out of the general fund to pay for our bonding indebtedness. We're having so much of that passing so many bonds. Now let me tell you then what I want to tell you is this. Now, what does that all mean? That all means this. Ladies and gentlemen, next session, the General Assembly, you mark my word, is going to be wanting to increase the property tax, the state property tax, because they're not going to continue to take this money out of the general fund. Okay? Now, another piece I want to talk to about, another piece of theft of sorts. It's a theft of sorts, is it not? And that has to do with, when you pay for your license, for whether it's a licensed physician, pharmacist, license, any number of, all the agencies have licenses. You have to pay for those every 2 years or so. And that money accumulates. The nurses have a big, large number of nurses, large pot of money there. He would take money from these funds that you paid into for your license fees to balance the budget. And in those cases, to the best of my knowledge, he didn't pay it back. There was no effort to pay it back. So this is the little piece that I wanted to tell you that you might not have heard from anybody else. And so that's my piece, my contribution to you. And I would, good news, was it? More good news. And I'd just like to end by saying I appreciate, if nothing else, that you send me back to vote against that increase of the state property tax. But all in all, I had 28 years. I know some people will look upon that. It's time to pass on. It's time to be term limited and so forth. But let me tell you, there's one thing you know about me. that you might not know about some other candidates. At the forum the other evening, I couldn't get over. Certain people at that forum were saying all the things that they were going to do when they get to Annapolis. Well, let me tell you, they're not going to repeal anything, they're not going to do anything, and they're going to work together to try to do that. You can take a position that you're in favor of doing such a thing, but to say that you are going to do it is a different situation. Now, what I started to say was this, that in my case, you know that for 28 years...
Finish up your point.
And for 28 years, you know exactly how I voted. You know I've been a conservative. You know I voted that way. And you know whatever your views are in respect to the conservative position, you know exactly what you can expect my position will be as far as you're concerned. I thank you so much for the opportunity to come.